So about 2 weeks ago, I thought to myself, you know, I bet I could be a professional simulation racer. So after like 15 or 20 seconds of thinking it over, I decided, what the heck, let's do it. But I'm gonna need a simulation rig. So I dug in super deep, really doing my research into everything I would need. The cockpit, the wheel, force feedback, or direct drive. What kind of screen would I use? What brands? Moza, Fanatic, Logitech? And you know what I found out? This is so overwhelming. So I actually almost quit our little quest here before it even began, but I'm not really a quitter. So instead of doing that, I decided to dig a little deeper, do a little bit more research, and then come up with what I think is the best beginner racing simulator setup. And by the end of today, we're gonna be racing. Real quick though, I wanted to make sure that you understood that we're building what I think is the best beginner simulation rig, not the cheapest beginner simulation rig. There is a difference. The goal here is to build one simulation rig that is going to last for a very long time without needing to replace key components too quickly. So in my opinion, the first place you need to start is the cockpit. I've read hundreds of reviews on what seems like an endless amount of cockpits, and because of that, I was able to rule out a few options. I definitely did not want the type of cockpit that sits at the desk. I 100% see the appeal in those over a more realistic cockpit, and it's a great option if you are lacking space as it won't take up a bunch of room in your office. But I'm looking for real immersion. I don't want to feel like I'm sitting at my desk because I sit at my desk all the time. I want to feel like I'm driving a car. So that's where option number 2 comes in. The foldable simulator cockpit. They're a little bit more expensive, coming in anywhere from like $160 to around $250 for expensive ones. And as a bonus, you can fold these things up and put them away if you're not using it, so that way you're not always taking up a whole bunch of space. But for myself, I know that if I fold that thing up and put it away at least 2 times, I'm gonna be sick and tired of reassembling my simulation rig every time I want to use it. Plus, even if my plan was to set it up once and never take it down, they're not really made with materials that are like really built to last. And if we're being honest, the racing chair that's attached to these things looks a whole lot like I'd be sitting on a beach lawn chair, not my super fast Lamborghini. So with those 2 options out, that leaves us with 2 more options. The first is a full motion simulator, which would be great if I was rich and had like $20,000 to spend on this hobby, which, spoiler alert, I don't. Or I can choose from a full-size unfoldable racing cockpit, which there are also like thousands of those available as well. But I chose this one, the Airswing Profile Sim Racing Cockpit. A real close buddy of mine picked up the exact same one, and he absolutely loves it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it's for good reason. This thing is made out of heavy-duty carbon steel, meaning this thing is not going to flex at all, which is exactly what I want. I am 6'2" and I can easily get in and out of this thing. This thing is fully adjustable, meaning I can adjust the wheel height, the wheel angle, seat distance, the pedal angle. I can even extend the length of the entire frame if needed, all while the rigidity of this thing stays intact. This is not going anywhere. And don't get me started on this seat, man. This thing is unbelievably comfortable. It hugs your sides to make sure you are truly locked into this thing, all while being unbelievably comfortable. Because I gotta be honest, if I'm gonna spend hours in a chair, it has got to be comfortable. So we've gone ahead and picked out our cockpit. Now it's time to move on to our wheel. So a ton of research went into picking out the perfect wheel for the setup that I'm building here, because the last thing that I wanna do is spend $300 on a wheel and pedal setup just to have to replace the entire thing later. I understand completely that if you get into things like this, you definitely want to upgrade, and the last thing that I wanted to do was have to replace everything just to make room for a new item. I'd love to be able to upgrade piece by piece slowly as my love for the hobby continues to grow. Now, Logitech was the first company that really stood out to me, but I think that's mainly because of their brand recognition more than the product itself. As I continued to do my research, the Moza line of steering wheels and bases started to sound like a much better option. Their R3 wheel and base is what really stood out to me because that's kind of like your entry level into direct drive systems. For anybody who doesn't know, these simulation wheels use something called force feedback or direct drive, and they're both different ways that the wheel recreates the physical sensation of driving. It just does it in two different ways. Force feedback uses either gears or belts to simulate the road feel, whereas with direct drive systems, the wheel is bolted directly to the center of a powerful motor, which will result in zero latency and an incredibly crisp response. So I decided that the Moza R3 would be a fantastic option for today's build. So I went ahead, put it in my shopping cart, went to go purchase it, and ended up with the Moza R5. I really don't want to have to get a new wheel for a while, so the upgrade seemed worth it to me. Plus, Moza designed their systems so that you can replace pieces of the system rather than buying a whole new kit again. You want a new wheel? You can go ahead and replace that. They're easy to take off. You want a stronger motor? Go and get one. I also love the Moza Racing Pit House software. It lets you fine-tune every single thing about your wheel, from maximum wheel speed to gear shift vibration. Every single little bit of your wheel can be completely customized to how you like to race. They also have presets already loaded into the software for whatever game you're trying to play. If you're trying to play Dirt Rally 2.0, all you have to do is click and it will immediately customize itself to be perfect for that particular game, making getting into any game that you want extremely easy. I regret nothing. So now that we've picked out our cockpit and we have our wheel, it's time to talk about what we're going to be using as far as display. This right here is Hisense's 55-inch U6 mini LED TV. For the price at which this comes in, these specs are absolutely fantastic, but the best part about this display right here is the native 144 Hz refresh rate that this thing gets in game mode, which is exactly what we want for complete and total immersion. Plus it has this cutie. So there are a few different ways that you can go about a display for your system. You can just use your computer monitor if you want to go ahead and put your simulation rig up to your desk, which I definitely don't want to do. You can set up your simulation rig in front of your TV in your living room or in a spare bedroom if that's what you want to do, which I absolutely did not want to do. Or you can do like a multi setup where you can have multiple displays, usually one in front and then two on the sides to create an unbelievable immersion, but I don't have that kind of space. And the other option was to go with one large, curved panel monitor, which sounds great, but they're only about this like high, and I really didn't want to be able to see above and below my screen. So the best option felt like a gigantic 55-inch display that's going to go directly in front of my face. And because I didn't want to buy a stand, I mounted mine directly to my wall. And I used a mount that will let me move the TV forward so that I can get complete and total immersion. The only thing that I'm going to see is gameplay. Now there is one last thing that I am adding to my sim rig that I feel like is overlooked, not just in sim racing, but in anything that has to do with like a high refresh rate, high resolution display, and that is the quality of the cables that you're using. And for today's build, I picked up some HDMI and DisplayPort cables from Silkland. If you're gonna be running a high-end gaming PC or a console that uses a high refresh rate monitor, you need to have cables that actually keep up, and that's why I decided to go with Silkland. Unlike a lot of other cables that simply claim to be HDMI 2.0, this one is officially certified to deliver the full 48 gigabits per second bandwidth needed for 4K 144 Hz gaming. It also supports VRR, ALLM, Dynamic HDR, Dolby Atmos, and EARC, so you're getting the complete next-gen gaming and home theater experience. If you were ever gonna build something like this, or you're building a high-end gaming PC system for yourself, please check out these cables. They're fantastic. I've used them for a very long time. So let's plug it all up and let's race.
5 minutes later.
All right, boys, I pulled out the Lambo for this one. Let's see how this goes. Whoa! All right, let's get back at it. Oh man, you really do feel everything with this wheel. Ah! Now we're moving. Now we got this down. Nope, we don't. So as far as my simulation goes, this is a rough draft. Obviously, there are a lot of things that I still need to do here. I'd like to clean up some of the cables, make it look a little bit more presentable. Plus, I'd also like to get some kind of shelving and maybe a surround sound system so that I can make it so that it's much more immersive than it already is. And I'm not trying to say that this is like the end all be all of simulation rigs. Obviously, this all comes down to personal preference. I mean, you can take all of my advice, some of my advice, or none of my advice, and it's not gonna hurt my feelings because ultimately what matters the most is how you guys feel about your simulation rig. But for me, this thing is everything I wanted it to be. And before anybody says it in the comments, I know the Forza 6 is not a true simulation game, so I'm not getting the most out of my sim right now. It's just the game that I am currently enjoying. I will be picking up some actual simulation games in the future so I could really dig deep into this build. But now that it's in here, it gives me a real good excuse to completely redo my entire office so that I can build like my racing lab. If you did find any of this content enjoyable, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I'd love to see you guys here more often. I have a lot of really fun projects coming down soon. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to racing as soon as possible because at some point my wife's gonna get fed up with me being on this thing instead of being out there with her, so I need to get as much race time in as humanly possible. I will see you right here for the next video.